back, everyone, to another episode of Figuring Out Epilepsy, where we talk about all things epilepsy plus more. Today's special guest is none other than Mike Knox. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll know how much I have raved about his book. And we're going to get to know him a little better, as well as his daughter's epilepsy story. So thank you, Mike, for being here with us. And how are you?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm good. How's Vivian and your wife?
Everybody's great. She's in school today, and she's 7 years, 2 months seizure free.
Oh, she's 7 years. How old is she?
17.
She's 17? Oh my goodness. I still picture her like this little girl, like the way in your book. So Mike wrote a story about his daughter's epilepsy journey. It's called Vivian's Reign. I have the book right here. I'll also link down below where you can get the book. So Mike, before your daughter's journey, did you know what epilepsy was?
No, and I would say the only time I ever saw anything on TV was an episode of Different Strokes where they were joking about epilepsy and the maid had epilepsy, but she had been keeping it a secret. So that's probably 40 years ago. Never encountered anybody that had it, had no clue whatsoever. And prior to my daughter having her first seizure, she'd been completely healthy, no problems whatsoever. So it was completely out of the blue.
Yeah, that kind of sounds like what happened to me, only I got it a little bit later in life. I got my epilepsy when I was 11 years old, and my family didn't know what it was at all. We had to learn about it from the doctors as we were trying to navigate the whole situation. So let's go back to the beginning. When did your daughter start with epilepsy?
She had her first seizure at the age of 2, and then between ages 2 to 6, it was figuring out. A lot of it was my wife and I going to the doctor and saying, hey, this sounds like epilepsy. Oh, no, we can't be too sure. So there was a long period of time where she wasn't diagnosed, and very scary because she was on no medication. We were told, just go home. It's not a big deal. Her first one that she had was they kept saying it's a fever seizure. Don't worry, it happens to everybody. And so for a whole year, we just thought everything was great. And then she didn't have one for a whole year from age 2 to 3.
Oh, wow. And when did she get diagnosed with epilepsy? When did they figure it out that it was more than a seizure fever?
About the age of 5, where we finally just said, hey, can we get a diagnosis? That was back and forth, different hospitals, different doctors. I mean, we went to one doctor that was just like, he's still there. He's supposed to be the greatest doctor in the world, and he's the most horrible human being I've ever met. And you're just getting a lot of bad medical advice, and a lot of it you do have to research a lot on your own, which unfortunately is what you have to do.
Yeah. And you can read about the journey too as well in the book that Mike wrote. It's called Vivian's Reign. I made the mistake of reading it before work because I usually have about 30-45 minutes before my shift starts. And the entire time I was on the verge of tears. Just everything you and your wife went through, what your daughter went through, the constant like trying to get answers, trying to talk to the doctors, and then even what you went through at your job. That shocked me. I was like, wow, the amount of harassment that this poor man went through because of his boss. Like, do you want to tell us a little bit about that, about everything that you've gone through and trying to figure out what was going on with your daughter?
Sure. A lot of it was, I kind of just had always felt, I never really thought something would happen to me like this or my family. So when it happens to your child, you're thinking, you pay insurance and you pay all these bills and you pay all these taxes. Don't worry, these people have got this handled. And they really don't, because they're human. And you just go up against so many walls and people that don't want to help you and don't want to do their job. And that's the most frustrating thing. And then you see all these shows on TV about how everybody at work is going to help you. Nobody at work cared. You have family and friends that abandon you. And you just have to kind of let it go. And it's very unfortunate. For me at my job, I was in law enforcement. I would meet people all the time. I was a parole agent, so I would meet the parolees that were hiding their epilepsy because nobody would just tell them, well, just suck it up. It's not a big deal. And then I would take that information to my boss and he would say, well, you're not a doctor, so don't write that down. You're going to get in trouble if you write that stuff down. I would write it down anyways, because to me, that was the core of communication. If I'm communicating with somebody that's having seizures, who has epilepsy, who has anything, the population that I dealt with had a lot of mental illness, and it was just laughed at. We really did nothing in the state of California to help anybody with mental illness. It was always just to arrest them. So I would see people having seizures, and the police are putting them in handcuffs, and I would stop them and say, this is a medical emergency. They're having a seizure. You don't know that. You don't know what you're doing. So it was going up a lot of resistance. And I really just found that the only way any of that is going to change is if we have state laws that we really have to educate, and we have to force people to understand that this is it's life threatening.
Yeah, I feel like, because I'm also in California, and then I have one particular family member that has mental illness, and he's been in and out of the whole prison system or jail system for years now, and he's just been going in and out, but it's all because of his mental illness. And before, like, they would think he was on drugs, and he would always come out clean, but they would still accuse him of being on drugs. Yep. And it wasn't until he got he started looking elsewhere for answers that he got the answers, and it turns out it was a brain injury that was happening. So I completely understand when you're talking about the whole prison system and how nothing's helping. I do see that it's getting a little bit better. He is getting better help, but yeah, it was, especially back then growing up, like I was born in the 90s. Back then it was horrible. Like, mental illness, anything that had to do with the brain, they just completely shunned it. It was just pushed to the side. But you kept fighting, and you kept trying to help your daughter. That's amazing, because a lot of parents, the ones that I have talked to, are they kind of just go with what the doctors are saying. But you're like, you and your wife, you guys fought for your daughter. I commend both of you for that. I feel like we definitely need some better education as far as mental illness and epilepsy is concerned. What do you think that is going to help?
I think state laws are going to help. I worked to try to get a law passed, because one of the things for my child was none of the school had to be trained. So I'd go to school and my daughter would have a seizure on the playground, and I would be like, why aren't you guys doing anything? And they weren't required to do anything. So nobody was telling them that they were required to do all this other training. But as teachers, yard staff, whatever, they weren't required to know anything about seizures, identify seizures, anything like that. So I would have to walk in with my child every single day. And every single day worrying about, is my kid going to have a seizure, and can I rely on any of these people, which I really couldn't rely on anybody. And I do understand that it's very scary when people are watching it. But the answer for so many people now is just to pull out their phone and film it. It's just so crazy. And then my daughter would get bullied. She's changed schools a couple times, but they would film her seizures and then show her the videos or pretend that they're having seizures in front of her. So that's another law that needs to be addressed, as well as fake seizures that are on, different platforms like TikTok and YouTube.
What made me mad about, like, reading about your daughter's story is the fact that, because I work at a middle school, I've worked at an elementary school, and I work at a middle school now. The fact that the staff was getting upset with you because you wanted to make sure your child is safe, that upset me, because I'm like, no, it's a parent's right to make sure that your child is safe. And it's a parent's right to have what the child needs. If you're telling them that she has seizures, and especially in the morning when she's waking up, it's obvious that parent is going to want to stay with their child and make sure they're okay. And they need to train a staff member. It's already in the medical history that she has seizures. So they should have trained someone to make sure she's okay. And yeah, no, we don't get trained for seizures. We don't get trained for any of that. When I find out there's a student that has seizures or epilepsy, I I stick to them and make sure they're okay, because I already know I have epilepsy. I
Yep.
know what to do. So I'm like, okay, I got this. I'll tell everyone I got this. You guys don't worry. But wait, yeah, we need to do that. The they just passed a law though that they have to train staff members about epilepsy and seizures. That's wonderful. They haven't implemented it, but I'm hoping maybe next year they'll start implementing and start training people for that. What do you think about that law being passed?
Yeah, that was the law that I was working on that ultimately somebody
Okay.
borrowed from. Um, again, it's all. I mean, I could get into the politics of it, which was it's all about. It comes down to money. It's when I was working with politicians, I really realized like I went to different fundraisers and it really people were coming with checks for $500,000 for other things that wasn't epilepsy.
Wow.
And, I'm coming there just, hey, could we pass this law so I can feel comfortable with my child? And that
Yeah.
took 4 years for it to make its way through. I mean, it takes a long, long time. There's a lot of, red tape, and the money is what pushes, state assembly laws through, unfortunately. And then, of course, then everybody, all those politicians are constantly campaigning. So, they're not worried about you. You're thinking they're going to be worried about you, but they're just campaigning. And then the assemblywoman that I was working with, she lost. And so I had to start all over again, and I couldn't get a meeting with the guy that's now in her place. So it gets very frustrating, and it is a long game. Yes, that law went through, and now I'm working on another law for fake seizure videos especially on YouTube, because they're monetized, they make money, and kids are getting bullied, and nobody cares, and no lawyers care because they say, well, that's just internet law. I don't have it, I can't do anything. And again, it's if somebody can recognize that they can make money off of fighting it, they're going to do it.
Oh, they're
that's
making.
that's kind of how I look at it. I worked, for free trying to get this law passed, and it was taken away from me, so other people could have the glory. But then at least it got passed, and somebody paid attention to it, and then we can go on to the next one, and that's what it is. The whole reason that I, fight for my kid and talk about it is if I can affect one person, which I have, then that other person can go and affect somebody else, and really that's what it is.
Yes.
It's a very slow process for something which epilepsy's been around 4,000 years.
Yeah. I didn't know they were making money off of those videos.
Oh yeah, it's all it's all monetized, every click, and everybody thinks it's hilarious.
They do.
I do stand-up comedy, and there's comedians that unfortunately they get laughs off of that, saying that somebody had a seizure or faked a seizure. I know two comedians, and they won't change their material because they're getting a laugh off of it, which equates to them,
Getting money.
Yeah.
That's horrible. Yeah. I don't know if you know a SoCal Epilepsy Bree. Bree and I have been talking about the seizure prank videos for a while. I've only started social media for about a year now, but I have gotten so many strobe light videos. I have gotten so many DMs, people telling me about seizure prank videos, and it always seems to die down for a little bit, and then it comes back up, and then it's like one after another. So it's like, how do we? What can whoever's listening to this? What can we do to help with passing that law?
You have to contact your local congressman, assembly, senate, repeatedly, because they're going to, I would physically go to their offices. They wouldn't want me to be there. So you're going to come up against walls again, and you just have to continue to let them know, hey, this is serious. I wrote the law, took the law to them. I did everything for them, put it on a drive, and sent it to them. They did nothing except they're putting their name on it, and they're standing in front of the assembly.
They took it and took credit.
Yeah, and so that's what you
Wow.
have to do. But and I've talked to other people. It gets very frustrating, and it's very sad because you feel nobody has empathy for you. You feel very lost, and you feel very defeated, which I did. And so it's just going to take time, but we need to recognize with YouTube and TikTok and other platforms. People are cowards in the way that they do that. Sending something that could ultimately kill you, and then the platform does nothing about it. I mean, the platform will lock you out for you trying to defend yourself. So you're again very stuck on it. And thankfully, my daughter has no interest. I don't know why, but my daughter has no interest with social media. I guess I'm lucky. But it makes me very angry, and I see them all the time. And, you're reaching out to there's so many different epilepsy communities. You really have to find one that fits for you, because there's a lot of infighting also, because a lot of us aren't on the same page.
Yes. That's one of the things that Bria and I have a hard time with, is that people within our own community as well say that we shouldn't say anything, because whenever something like that happens, Bria and I are both on the same page. We call it out. We tell them this is not okay. And I've made a few episodes on my podcast about it, and we get comments, or we'll get DMs saying like, you guys shouldn't be calling people out like that. That's not right. People are going to hate us. I'm like, people can hate me. I'm cool. I'm cool with people hating me. I'm not here to have everyone like me. I'm here to help the epilepsy community, and from the majority of the community are not okay with those prank videos. They are not okay with receiving those strobe lights. Those strobe light videos can potentially hurt one of us. It's for those who are photosensitive, those are so dangerous. So if I don't say anything, I feel like I'm just contributing to the problem. Like, I'm not keeping my followers safe. And I cannot not say anything. That's
Yeah, no, I mean, nothing in history, nothing got accomplished by people being silent. And
yeah.
I just look, especially for something that's on social media, when people are telling you that they want you to stop, it usually means that you're doing the right thing. Because there's so many just psychopaths that are on social media that are trying to bully other people because they're not being seen. If nobody would ever do that face to face. It's easy to be a keyboard warrior, and send something off to somebody. But nobody would do that to your face. So
no, they like to hide behind the computer or their phone. Yeah.
And I've had a lot. I mean, trying to do that law, I would have people dox me that were from epilepsy foundations, because they just didn't want you taking credit for it. And I know quite a few people who have just stopped caring because these epilepsy foundations have attacked them. And again, those epilepsy foundations, they're getting money, and they don't have to do anything. They can do a fundraiser once a year and don't have to do anything else. They don't have to help anybody with epilepsy find a job or find transportation or find a lawyer. Because that was always my thing was, hey, could you refer me to a lawyer or an advocate? And this one foundation would always send me this number that the lady died 12 years ago.
Oh, my goodness.
Rounded circles. So I've definitely been there. I definitely understand it. And it definitely gets frustrating where I meet so many people that they just give up.
Yeah. I've reached out to the foundations a couple times about concerns that people have told me, and I get like a very generic response. It's almost like automated, and I've reached out for personal reasons too, and I felt like I didn't get any help. So I'm just like, okay, I'll just do it myself. I'll figure it out myself. But the foundations are there to help us. So if you're not helping us, are you guys really doing your job?
They're supposed to. It's just that they're not required by law to do it. Again, that's why that's why I bypassed everybody and just wrote a law and tried to do it myself. Which ended up, those same people that were against me ended up taking it anyways. But I mean, I chuckle to myself because I've been doing this 15 years, and for my daughter, for them to ever recognize anything, she's going to be a grown adult. So I'm not going to care anymore. And that's what it is. You just have to do it on your own. You really do.
Yeah, that's really sad, to be quite honest, that we have to do it on our own. We need to be more united as a community and help each other, especially the foundations. If the foundations are there, you guys are there to help us. If you're not going to be helping us, what's the point? And I've told the foundations too that this is happening with the prank videos, with the strobe lights in our DMs and stuff, and all I've gotten was a sorry.
Yeah, they're well aware of it because I've been telling them since the creation of the internet. They know, they just don't care to do anything.
Wow.
I've looked at their tax returns, which is all because they're nonprofits. They are getting millions of dollars. They're making a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to be in those positions. They're set and secure. They're not really going to go political wise. They're not going to go out of their way to jeopardize their own job. And I understand that. But again, it's like you want empathy when you're going through it, especially, when I was first starting out with my wife and I, we're thinking, oh, these people are our friends. They're going to be, if I just go to this walk, everybody's going to support me. And that's not, you're going to a walk and that's about it. You're paying to go to a walk. And so you kind of then, what you're doing now is you're meeting people that are like-minded. And, we found another family that we could communicate with that had a daughter that was the same age, but that was about it. I was expecting this huge community and it's just not there. And I'm hoping it'll improve.
Hopefully. That's why we're here. That's why we're here to improve things and bring awareness to epilepsy. But I didn't know anyone in the epilepsy community until I started posting myself. That's what, like 20 something years of living with epilepsy.
Yeah. And, not to be the downer that I am, but, I was on Facebook thinking, it's family oriented. And that was like the worst toxic place I've ever been in my life. I would just say like one word, I'd be attacked by all these people. So I just finally just don't even go there anymore. But I got all fired up in the beginning and had an epilepsy page and wanted all these contacts with all these people. And everybody's just frustrated and they're upset and they're going to take it out on each other. But
it's understandable why everyone is so frustrated, but we shouldn't turn on each other. We need each other.
Yeah, one of the saddest things for me is just, every year I go, my daughter has VNS, vagus nerve. So I go with the company every year to Disneyland to talk to parents. And I just meet so many parents where their kids are so afraid and embarrassed and they don't want to go out of the house. And to me, that's extremely sad because it's so debilitating where you're right. You don't want to go outside because you're going to feel embarrassed if you have a seizure, at the store, at school, or wherever it is. So you just stay inside and you don't, talk to anybody anymore.
That makes me so sad. They shouldn't live their life like that. I was the opposite. I was a rebel and I just acted like I didn't even have seizures. Like I didn't even have epilepsy. I completely denied it for like 20 years. I was the complete opposite. Don't be like me though. Don't be like me.
I would say not to, but at the same time, I would say whatever works for you, because I'm not the one that has epilepsy. My daughter does. And so I just felt it was crushing to me where, she would be her own advocate and stand up for herself. And then the kids in her class would turn around and say, you talk too much about your epilepsy. Yeah, because it's 24 hours a day with her. And so she couldn't win either way. And a lot of times, or they'll tell her, you haven't had a seizure in 7 years, so you don't have epilepsy anymore. Stop talking about it. So you can really never win a lot of times. And as a parent, that's very sad because I'm sending my kid off to the unknown every day and not really knowing what's going on. And is she going to really tell me, 100% of what's going on at school? And I think a lot of times she keeps things from me.
Yeah, I for sure kept a lot of things from my parents. It was just, I didn't want to worry them. That's what it was. I didn't want to, and my mom was a single mom when I was diagnosed. So I really didn't want to worry my mom, put some more stress on her. So I think that's where it was my whole acting like I'm okay, even though I'm not okay, to help everyone else around me. That's how I coped with my epilepsy. My dad once told me that he felt like it was his fault that I had epilepsy. He felt like he must have done something wrong. Did you ever feel like that?
I mean, you can't deny it just because it's your kid. But my daughter had a stroke in vitro. So while my wife was giving birth, so they kind of narrowed it down to she most likely had a blood clot, and that's what it is. And then you can see where the clot is in my daughter's brain. But to me, it's the guilt is she going to be independent and be able to be an adult and have a family and live on her own? That's huge. And then the other guilt of she's going to live by herself, and am I going to get that call one day that she's not there anymore? So, it's like kind of like the survivor's guilt of it, because I do want her to live on her own and I want her to be independent. And so much has changed because of her VNS, where she's independent now, where we were told she was never going to be independent. I mean, our diagnosis 10 years ago was she's never going to progress past the second grade. She's basically, as the doctor said, she's going to be mentally retarded and you shouldn't even try. And that was the doctor that we left. But he didn't, that was a guy that was saying, well, there's no hope for you. And I think there's a lot of hope and a lot of hope for everybody.
Yes.
But then it comes along with the fear of watching my child be on her own and be independent, because she has been so dependent on my wife and I.
Yeah, that's completely understandable. What is she looking forward to? Because she's 17 now. She's almost at that age where she could be going off to college, and
she's looking forward to college, and that's great because she never thought she was going to be able to go to college. She gets all A's, which I was all pretty much F's, D's. And she loves to study and she loves to learn, which I never did. So she's looking forward to getting her driver's license and going to college, which she should, because she's a teenager. And those are all the things that were, she stayed back in the 5th grade because she was in the hospital so much. So she had a very loss of her childhood. A lot of it was spent in the hospital, and she's kind of making up for lost time,
Yeah, that's understandable. Is there a certain college that she wants to go to, or a subject that she really enjoys learning about?
Yeah, she loves film and she loves set design, and she wants to go to the Master's College, which is a private college that's in Santa Clarita.
Ooh, is she going to be like Miles and creating her own movie? That would be amazing.
Yeah, I don't think so much as she's more of the set design than her own movie about epilepsy. I think it's kind of hard. I've tried to encourage her a few times, but I think it's kind of hard for her to talk about sometimes at her age.
She can definitely do it. I mean, we have so many amazing people in the community, like Miles creating his own movie, and whatever she has the dream of doing, she can definitely do it. And I hope nothing but the best for her. And I'm excited to continue to, hopefully we can stay in contact, and I can see how she's doing in the future and how everything is going. That would be wonderful. Maybe we can work together and help pass these laws that we seriously need. Is there anything else you would like to talk about before we end up going?
Sure. I didn't mean to be the big downer.
No. It's understandable.
There is a good epilepsy community like you, which is a large reason why I wanted to be on your podcast. There's another one, which is Brain Ablaze.
I like his stuff.
I'm very good friends with him, and I think he's doing a lot of great work also. So I just tell anybody, just don't give up. I know it gets discouraging, but I think we're definitely on the forefront of some amazing technology, which is, again, one of my things that saved my daughter's life was her VNS, big nerve stimulator, which before that, she really kind of was a zombie little kid. And once that kicked on, she took off and running, and it's absolutely saved her life.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad that she's doing much better. Yes. I mean, every child deserves to have a beautiful and fulfilling life, and not be like what you said, like a zombie. And just these medications for seizures are just horrible. The side effects are just so horrible. And I'm happy to hear that she's doing much better, and that she's been seizure free for years now. That's amazing. Was that a huge relief for you and your wife?
Oh yeah, at the time we were just expecting her to go 1 month. So the time that she got it, she went 6 months, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, she's cured. And then she had about 5, but it comes with the VNS comes with a magnet, so she was able to swipe the magnet, which is another thing I liked about it, because before that she had to carry rescue medication, a shot. So the magnet, people were more comfortable with it, and then she could swipe the magnet herself, and that stopped her seizure right away. And her recovery, that used to be a week or 2, was instantaneous. And beyond that, it helped her with everything else. It helped her with her memory and her brain fog and her anxiety and her depression and her sleep, because she had massive anxiety before that. Now she sleeps through the night. My wife and I sleep through the night. Because that's another thing about epilepsy, is it's not just affecting the person that has epilepsy, it's affecting the whole family, because none of us were able to pretty much be still, because we're just constantly waiting for that next seizure to happen, and you don't know when it's going to happen.
Yes. But I tell that all the time to people who are learning about epilepsy or who are new to my page or podcast. It doesn't just affect the person having the seizures, it affects the whole family. My daughter, I have a 14-year-old, my daughter, before she wouldn't even want to go visit her dad because she was so worried that I might have a seizure and she wouldn't be here to take care of me. My mom, like growing up, I felt like I was in a bubble because my mom was so worried about me and afraid that I'm going to be out and about and have a seizure. So she like never wanted me to go out. But the little rebel that I am, I did it. But thank you so much, Mike, for the book. It's wonderful. I'll have the links down below. So if you guys are interested in reading the book, I highly, highly recommend this book. It's probably the one that has made me the most emotional, to be quite honest, because I while I was reading it, I just kept thinking about my parents and what they went through. And I think it's a wonderful book. You did a great job. What actually made you want to write the book?
I wrote another book about prison, but the main thing was I was really, it came very close to us losing her many times. And so I was just always writing down so I could remember everything. So I was from writing down when the seizures happened, what happened before and after the seizures. And I just wanted her to have something because her memory was wiped out so much, to remember what happened, and that my wife and I were always there for her.
I love the reason, not just the reason that you wanted to just have a reminder and remember her. I think you did wonderful. It's such an amazing book. I genuinely love this book. Highly recommend it to everyone and anyone. Is there any last things that you want to let everyone know?
Sure. I know nobody reads anymore, but
I still do.
I do, except for you. You can find that on my website's MikeKnox.com, or I'm on TikTok or Instagram at Mike Knox Comedy.
Yes. And I'll have all the links down below, so make sure you check out the description box. You could also, if you click on my Instagram bio, I have a link on my website that goes to where you can purchase this book as well. So make sure you check all the links, the description box, the bios. And thank you so much, Mike, for being here. I truly appreciate it. We'll keep in touch. I would love to be able to help you with creating laws and whatever else you're working on, and give Vivian a big hug from me. I know she doesn't know me, so it may be weird, but give her a big hug. I hope she's well and I hope she reached for the stars, and I hope that you and your wife are doing well as
we are. Thank you so much for having
me. Thank you. And I'll check everyone. I'll talk to everyone on the next episode of Figuring Out Epilepsy. Thank you, guys.